like, I'm not going on stage. He said, no. You just stand over here, like right behind Bill. So I stood behind fucking Bill Stevenson and watched them play their set. I was like, well, that's it. I can go jump off a bridge now. That's it.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, the dating scene can suck my ass. It's pretty awful, so Godspeed to anyone out there who is dealing with it as well. Seti Alpha Six were a band from New Jersey. Their sound was kind of like melodic rock. I think I kind of compare Matt's vocals a little bit to Popeye from Far Side, like that kind of vein. But there's literally nothing out there that's right about them. All they have is a SoundCloud page from the Jersey or the NJPB archive, and they've got something on Discogs, and that's it. But they were a part of Pinball Records, which I've talked about many times and had many guests on here that have also been a part of Pinball. But this is another very Jersey-focused interview. So if you, it's like a deep cut because they were a local band and they did like one tour, which we ended up playing with them on that tour. So we talk about that in the interview as well. But yeah, so this is pretty much, I think, the only thing that's documented out there about them. So if you're from Jersey, you'll love this. And if you're not from Jersey, Matt is super great and his stories are fun. So I think you'll like this one. I tried to get both Matt and Joe, Joe's their drummer, aka the Goose, together for the interview, but Joe was stuck in traffic when we started the interview, and we also had to like push it off 3 times, and I wasn't gonna fucking do that again. So I'm sorry, Joe, that you didn't get a chance to be in this. I really would have loved to have you give your input since you're pretty hilarious. But we had to go on without you, and so I got Matt on the Skype, and this is what we talk about. Losing 23% of his hearing, my old band touring with these fools, professional skateboarders skating at his house as a kid, playing with the Bouncing Souls when they were a funk band, recording with pneumonia, the Robert J. Heiner piss gun story, is it true or is it false? We will find out towards the end of the interview. The Stanhope House, Rico, J. Pinball, working on the Vans Warped Tour, the Shark Song, the Goose, and a ton more. And that's all I want to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. So wait, you lost 23% of your hearing?
Yeah, it's something like that. They didn't actually give me a straight number, but I have, I always thought it was pronounced tinnitus, but it's actually tinnitus. So it's a constant ringing in my ears.
Oh no.
And yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's crazy. I was like, what is going on? Like I knew I had some partial ringing, but then it got, through COVID, it got real bad, like through the pandemic. So I went to the ear doctor or the audiologist or whatever, and took the hearing test, which they put you in a booth and they put these headphones on you, and you have to and they ping you with sounds in each ear, and you have to sort of press a button when you hear it. Right. So I could hear stuff. I could definitely hear the frequencies when they were nowhere near the same pitch as the ringing, but when it got near the ringing in my ears, it like vanished. And
wow.
When I came out of the test, and the lady had a chart, and there were red marks like all over it. She's like, "Wow, there's a lot of ringing going on in your ears, huh?" I was like, "That's not reassuring. I thought you were going to give me some sort of real, like some sort of path towards success, but no, it's just something I'm going to deal with now. But it is what it is."
So do you hear it, or is it kind of like white noise where it's there like you don't?
It's a high pitched. It's not a buzz and it's not a ring. It's like, remember, you might remember this, but like a long time ago when cassette tapes were the thing that you had in your car, you would get those black cassettes and they had like a little test tone at the beginning of the tape.
I do not remember.
It was like 4 little beeps. It was kind of like, the only way I can describe it, it's like the highest pitch of those beeps. It's there 24/7, and then it disappears for like a couple hours, then it comes back. It's really weird.
Did you get this from playing in the band?
I would have to imagine it's from loud music. Yeah.
We're going to jump around here, but we're going to go back and talk about the band and the beginning of it and the Jersey scene and all that. But how many years did you guys play total? Or did you do bands after Seti Alpha Six?
I did bands with the guys from Seti before Seti, and then in college, and then after college, and after Seti as well. Right. So like for me, like I started playing with Joe when I was like 12 in my room. And like Joe didn't have a drum set. Joe had my workbench and a roll of duct tape and a magazine for a snare. And I had a super shitty Hondo guitar and then a Gorilla guitar. Remember Gorilla amps? I had a Gorilla guitar that was made by BC Rich. It was a piece of garbage. And it was just he and I. Like we wrote like stupid middle schooler songs. It's like we would skateboard all day and then go play music in my room. And like my dad finally bought Joe his first drum set. So it was like this super shitty set that we bought from this punk rock guy named John Klotz. I don't know, this is like late 80s, I guess. You know, we played in my garage. It was just Joe, me and Joe. And then we added this kid, Mike Nattiello, who was a friend of ours. And our first band was Exploding Donkey Fetus. Yeah, EDF, because it was all like the rage to have like initials, right? So we were EDF, like DRI, SOD, right? EDF, and we had like 5 songs, and like Mike couldn't sing and like couldn't keep tempo, but we did like a couple of Misfits songs and then a couple of originals. It was fun. It was super fun.
There's definitely a full-on Jersey episode, which I love because we could talk about just all that shit. And the cool thing is that our bands went on tour together. Like we were on tour with Humble, and you guys met up with us in like Louisville, or
Yep.
Okay, and then we went all the way down to Florida with you guys. Like we played Athens. Like I'm gonna go over this later on too, but we met in Louisville, went to like Athens. I don't know where else, like Florida, and then I think we split at some point. I believe
We split up. I don't remember if this is when we split up, but we played a show with Midtown where their van broke down in Florida.
No, that was
I think
us.
that was them.
That was us.
Was that you?
Yeah, I know, but that wasn't. Wait a minute. Oh, that was 2 different stories. Like the last tour we did, our van broke down, and I had to go ask Midtown for their AAA card. Yeah, it's very embarrassing.
That's funny.
It's a story I've told many times where I was like apologizing to Gabe before that, being like, "I'm so sorry we've talked so much shit about you on this tour," and he found out about
That's
it.
so funny.
But I think we may have split because we played a skate park together.
Yep.
And
In Florida.
Yeah. And we also played Gainesville, and this part I'll leave out. Okay. I can leave that in if you want, but
I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
And I was talking to Sean because me and Sean from Lamar still talk all the time, and
That's cool. How's he doing?
he's great. He's living out in Arizona now.
Wow.
Yeah, we were just texting because he's come to visit me a few times, and we like stayed friends through the years, and we had a couple hiccups here along the way. For like in the early 2000s when we did like a Lane My reunion, and we kind of just, me and him were doing a business together, and it just didn't really work, so I just stopped talking to him for like a long time, and then we reconnected, and now we literally talk like all the time, which is great.
So funny, man. Like like life does that to everybody, right? Like you start out as friends. I would always call it serious nonsense, because nothing ever really amounts to anything of great importance. And like you explode, then you come back to square one over and over again with people. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you do if the 2 people are constantly growing, like you can stay in that mental state when you were. Because I mean, I definitely, like, through my 20s, I had to really grow through a lot of shit and stop being so mad about things. But you can't have that reconnection with someone if you both aren't doing that.
Yeah, you both have to grow up at some point. Like not that you have to grow up and like become an accountant, but you have to grow up. You evolve. I shouldn't say grow up. You evolve. That's really what it is. You evolve, and you have to. You're the people that you're around have to continually evolve too.
Well, it's a big thing too, is that I think, and I've kind of gone over this like a bunch of times with people, or even just in personal conversations. It's like, how do I say this? Like if you're holding on to that past, it's so stupid because it's over and you're fucked. Like you're kind of fucking yourself basically, because then you're just constantly mad and you're going, well, you're doing this to yourself. Like I did something a very long time ago. We had a dispute about something, and you're still mad about that. So it's like that shit's on you.
Yeah, I mean that is absolutely true. I mean, like if you're holding on to what you think. Well, if you're a peak too sooner, I mean, I guess that's the only way I would put it, right? Like you're holding on to your glory days, and you think that that's how life is going to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sorely mistaken. I mean, I always reference with my kids and my wife, and just in life in general. It's the quote from The Outsiders, right? The nothing gold can stay. Nothing ever stays the same, no matter how great it is. I always have thought that, and I've tried to keep that present in my mind so I don't freak out.
Well, I think it's also your perception too at the time, because you can now's a great example of just the world in general of how just fucking gnarly it is. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I I also, if you go through, I say this, like, if you go through history, like, shit's always fucking weird. Like, humans in general are just fucking weird, awful, and then good people at the same time. It's this weird thing. But now we get to see it all the time. I actually deleted, like, the BBC and, like, NPR from my phone because I kept waking up to, like, Russia did this. I was like, you know what, man? I can't look at this shit anymore because it's stressing me the fuck out.
You know, it's funny. My friend Rico, who you know, right?
Yeah.
Or knew, right?
Yep,
Rico
yeah.
passed a long time ago. We were riding around like in his car. We used to, I mean, Rico and I skateboarded like every day. We would be riding around in his car smoking cigarettes. He was like a quiet, philosophical kind of guy, right? He was crazy and awesome, but also like he was a pretty spiritual, like philosophical dude all the way around. And I was talking to him, and we were gotten into the topic of like fighting at like shows or just like being, antagonized or, being antagonistic as a person. And he said, there isn't a, if you don't perceive there is a conflict, there won't be one. Like basically, like he was sort of saying like, if you just don't pay attention to it or don't involve yourself, then there is nothing to fight about. It's like in The Hobbit. Like, I don't know if you saw that cartoon version of The Hobbit when we were all kids. There's a war at the end with 7 armies, and he just bails. He's like, this is insane. The world's too crazy to live in. I'm out. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, I got off social media as much as anyone can be. I've just tried to not live in a bubble, but try to focus on things I have control over, because otherwise you'll go fucking crazy.
Well, I think some people would argue too because they think like, well, they're like, well, if you're not part of the fight, you're part of the problem. You're like, no, like it's just not my thing. Like when it's around me and it's local, or if it's something. Like, I don't know, man, when the whole world is on fire and everyone's like showing up, you're like, you're not really showing up. You're just reposting a post that someone else made. It's like, you're not an activist at that point. Like, you're not really.
This is funny. I mean, like, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. So before the Capitol riots happened and before like arguing back and forth between, the idiots on all sides, I decided I was going to buy a camper. I think my motivation was, we're locked up here in COVID in a pandemic, and we need to do something as a family where we can travel and be together and maybe not bother anybody, and not, we'll bring our germs with us, but it'll just be us with our germs in the camper, that kind of thing. That was my main motivation, right? To give us something to do. But a sub motivation absolutely was, if the shit hits the fan, I am out. I'm going to go find like a piece of property somewhere in the Adirondacks and hide, like Red Dawn. You know what I mean? Like, and like my kids were like, "What do you mean we're going to hide up in the mountains?" I said, "Listen, kids, we are not cowards, but we are retreaters. We're not going to participate in some, ridiculous conflict when folks on both sides are just as insane."
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. So I'm trying to think of how we segue this, even though I love where this conversation is going. Okay, so when I got into punk rock scene, I did it mainly for the whole, like, I liked music and melody and girls. That was my motive. Like, I never gave a shit about the political
Those
aspect.
are great motivations.
Yeah, like my side of it was personal and just selfish, and I was like, yeah. And then there was all like the political stuff that went on. So when people showed up with vegan pamphlets and things like that, I was like, that's cool. Like, I respect that. And I think at the time too, there was a part of me too being like, yeah, fuck that, I'm eating burgers, and shit. But
Yeah.
I was just like, hey man, you do your thing, and I was open to that. But people came and they're like, like when bands got up on stage and preached all politics and stuff, I was like, I just don't give a fuck. Like, what was your side of it back then?
So skateboarding happened first. Actually, let me rephrase that. 1984, I was bombarded by Van Halen, and the impact of Van Halen on my, preteen person was like insane. Like I felt like Eddie Van Halen was a superhero.
Yeah.
Right?
And then Hot for Teacher came out, and you're like, yes, boobs.
I mean, what more does a 12-year-old boy want than to have his teacher take their clothes off and get picked up by David Lee Roth in a hot rod? I mean, come on. It's like the best of all worlds.
Got him right.
But like at the same time, like my dad, like my family generationally have all been musicians, like, and singers. So like my father, my grandfather, my aunts and uncles, like everybody plays music. They wanted me to play guitar early on, so I tried, and like I completely failed. But then I got the bug with Van Halen, where I was like, God, it would be great to be a superhero like this guy. And then my dad got me really into like Eric Clapton and like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Johnny Winter and like all of these other like blues and jazz and fusion people. So I got like totally immersed in music, but it was all too difficult to play. Like I was like, this, if I'm going to try and learn like, Jimi Hendrix, like right out of the chute, like it was so frustrating. It just didn't seem applicable or attainable. So I quit. And then in 1985 or 80, I guess that's 85, Back to the Future came out. And the day after Back to the Future came out, I bought a skateboard. I was completely mesmerized. And it was like finding the thing you love the most. And through skateboarding, like skateboarding is a direct conduit to punk rock. Like it's like a main line to punk rock. Like, immediately was into like, Jesus, like TRI, Youth Brigade, Adrenaline OD, Social Distortion, Agent Orange, like, all of those bands, like skate rock bands, Drunk Engines. I mean, like all these different, like, bands that you would see in like some of those super early skate videos. And like, I got deep into skateboarding. I built a vert ramp at the house.
Oh, wow.
And like, we had, tons of people coming over, professional skateboarders coming to my house. I was in middle school.
Wait, well, hold on. Two questions. Wait, what town were you in again at this point?
Warren Township.
Okay. And so this is like, by like Blairstown and all that?
No, that's Warren County. So like Somerset County, like Basking Ridge, Warren, Long Hill Township, like that part. Berkeley Heights, New Providence.
What skateboarders were coming over, like Tin O'Connor and things like that?
No, this is like way before that. So like Tom Grholski, Dan Tagg. We had people coming from Michigan because, like, believe it or not, like in Warren, Long Hill, Watchung, like that area, there were a ton of vert ramps.
Really?
And like, yeah, so there was tons of vertical skateboarding like right here. And my ramp was like one of the ones that everyone came to like all the time. And I was like a little kid. So like these older dudes would show up and like my parents would like be running out like drinks and burgers and whatever to everybody. And we would all skate. It was awesome.
Were you good at were you good on the vert ramp?
That was all right. I mean, like
you could drop in.
I was like scared. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I could do like little airs, little hand plants.
I love it.
Nothing insane. It was just amazing to have that opportunity to have all those different people show up. One of the bands that used to come over was not bands, but there was a band in our town called the Raging Lamos. They were amazing. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but talk about like early New Jersey punk scene stuff. I mean, you're talking mid 80s probably. But Stevie D, who was the singer of the Raging Lamos, used to come skate my ramp. In fact, there's a YouTube video of him skating my ramp. It's pretty funny.
I have to look this up.
But like he was amazing, like just fun and cool, and like I got to go see his band play, and I was like a little kid, and like all those guys coming over, not only would they come over to skate and like give me stickers and tell me what's cool and take me to cool spots, they would bring over music like crazy. So like the first time I ever heard the Descendants was at my house. A guy brought a tape over and put it in the boombox, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it was like, "It's the Descendants." And then like I heard All, and then we heard like Agnostic Front and the Cro-Mags and the Fearless Iranians from Hell, and whatever else that people would bring over. And like through skateboarding, it opened up all of those avenues to music. And like Rico was that too. Like Rico was a senior when I was a freshman in high school, and he was already going to City Gardens. I would get a lot of music from him because I was too little or too young to even go see shows at that point.
That was also like an hour and a half drive too to get down there.
Yeah, you would only go. You'd have to either drive to New York or drive to Trenton. There was no way my folks were going to drive me to New York to go see like a punk show at like the Ritz, but they drove me to the worst part of Trenton to go see the Cramps, which was awesome.
Oh my god.
Yeah, for my first show at City Gardens was Cramps and Flat Duo Jets, full on psychobilly. My mom and dad waited in the parking lot in our Chevy Suburban. Yeah, but I was like 14 or 15, something like that. Yeah, it was fun.
That's amazing. Like, would you do that for your kids now?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, because like I think the reason I had any ability to do any of this stuff or like concentrate on playing music and having a band or skateboarding was because my parents supported every aspect of that. Like my mom and dad had a total fuck you attitude as well. Like it was kind of like we were steeped in suburbia, but they still felt like misfits. I think. I mean, they like anybody else had their stint with being phony balonies, like driving a Mercedes or whatever. But like, I think that wore off pretty quickly. Like those are, all of those statusy things are pretty hollow promises to begin with. Seeing them go through that and then having them really double down and endorse building a vert ramp at the house and encouraging everyone to come over and play music in our garage. That allowed me the avenue to do this stuff. Like with Joe, right? Like Joe's parents were not like super pumped on us playing music, but they still let us practice in the basement. So like just the support we got from our parents, allowed us to do, different things.
There was like different levels of support from parents.
Yeah.
Like for our band, Chris's mom, like me and Chris would play upstairs, and his house had this weird setup where like the upstairs, there was the staircase going downstairs, but with the roof, it was the same ceiling from the downstairs and upstairs. So like you could clearly just hear upstairs. And so we'd play there, and she'd be like, all right, you have an hour and then you're going to shut the fuck up. So there was like,
yeah.
There was that approach. And then there's the other parents where, I mean, it depending too, is like some people I've talked to, like Penfold, like they had a basement where it was like soundproof and they could play there all the time. Like for like you guys, was it like, could your parents hear the noise? Or
So it's really, really funny. If you listen to, on New Jersey, the Pop Punk Archive, my first real band with Joe and Rico was called Frisky's Revenge. This is like a gazillion years ago. It's like back when it was still like almost like metalcore.
I'm looking this up.
But at the end of our demo, I think the demo's on there.
Yeah, it is. That's right. I have it open.
There's a clip at the end of the record of Joe's dad yelling at us because he just got home and we were making like way too much noise in the basement. He's going to throw his cymbals down the stairs. That was the rule at Joe's house.
Good old Italian father.
Oh yeah. So Joe's dad was awesome, but like I think it was 4:00. We had to be done. Like that's when he got home from his office, and we had to be done and gone. Right.
And gone.
Right. And a lot of times in the summers, we would move Joe's drum set to my house because we could play at night because there was nobody around. Right. Like nobody around my house, like no neighbors to complain. So we would move our practice space, periodically from Joe's basement to my garage.
So how does this like lead to you guys finding the whole scene? Because because you keep saying 86, 85. I'm like 7 years old at this point. Like, what's our age difference?
So I was born in 73, so I'm 48.
So yeah, you I mean, you're basically in high school, I guess, at that point, like you're saying.
Yeah. So what happened was we played. I got to high school as a freshman, I think in '89, and we started Frisky's Revenge, which was me, Rico, and Joe. And Rico sang. Right. I couldn't sing and play, so Rico sang, and Rico's a good singer.
Yeah.
Rico sang for that band Clincher too.
That one I don't know.
Yeah, it was him and a bunch of other guys, John Vandermeer and they were like a New Providence Legion Hall band. We played all the way through high school, and like we did as much as we could. Like we played a lot of like weird shows. We played like one of the Bouncing Souls first shows in a basement with them.
Holy shit!
Like when they were still a funk band, and the singer had a fucking a ponytail on top of his head to the middle of his back. The rest of it was shaved. Like
I just found this out, or like in the last year, someone told that story. I was like, that's wow. I was not expecting that.
Their first real big show, it was us, this band Cowabunghole, which was Mark Fronczak from One Nature,
okay,
the Pretzel Men, and the Bouncing Souls at a church in Burnersville. And then the church freaked out the day of the show. So we played at the church, and they were like, nope, no more of this. You're all freaks, out. And we had to go to this guy, Matt Joseph's house, and the rest of the show happened in his basement. So like 500 kids like drove from the Burnersville church to Matt Joseph's house and like took over his house while his parents were upstairs. It was amazing.
You got to think about it, like how the basement shows happened, and it was either probably I don't have any money to put a show on at a Legion Hall, so I'll just do it in my basement, or it was a show was happening, it got canceled, and then everyone just drove to someone's so like, oh, I have a basement.
Yeah, that happened quite often. I mean, we had other shows like that too. Like there was always like these random. There was never like a home base. Like for a while, we had a decent spot at the Somerset YMCA in Somerville. They would do like shows there, and that's really where we met like the guys from One Nature and Shabagoy and some of the other Dilemma and all those bands all played there, kind of, if I'm getting my years correct. But then we did a lot of Grange Hall shows with the like metal bands from the hills where I live. Randomly, we had like Lifetime Resurrection and Mouthpiece when they were on New Age Records do a show before they were ever even really bands.
Oh my god!
In the bass, dude. I remember seeing Lifetime play. That guy Scott played guitar. The guy from oh my gosh, with Alf from X Number 5. What the hell's the name of that band? Scott St. Hilaire. Scott was friends with this girl, Karen Turnquist, who was a punk rock girl in my high school, who I was close with. She was awesome. She used to have these killer parties, and that's how we met Scott and Ari and all those guys, the Middlesex hardcore kids, I guess. They were all like super big pants and like ultra fashionable, and like they were super cool looking. And I was like, wow, these guys are like, they don't look like any of us idiots at all. Like we were still like leather jacket, green hair, and they were like kind of fashionable and cool looking. I remember Scott telling me about his band, and he's like, I'm in this band Lifetime, and we're fucking awesome. And I was like, I guess, like I was like, you're awesome. He's like, we're awesome. I'm like, well, that's cool, right? So I didn't lend much credence to it. Like I was like, I don't know how awesome they could be. So they played at this Grange Hall show, and I was like, mouth on the fucking floor, flabbergasted at how amazing they were. It was fucking shocking.
Yeah, but which albums? I mean, was this like Background and
this is like their first
7 Inches? Well, 7 Inches, that was an album that was full of 7-inch songs, or
yeah, I mean it had all like their sort of super straight edgy stuff. But I remember thinking like the guitar work and like the vocals were melodic, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like this is insane. Like I was used to like punk rock at that point had turned into like a mix of like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Primus or something. And they were completely different. And like, I mean, Resurrection was good and Mouthpiece was good, but Lifetime, I was like, whoa, everything from like the guitar sound to the presentation to the songwriting. I was like, this is next level shit here.
What year was it?
And I was still in high school. So it had to be like 90, 91.
Oh my God.
Something like that. It was shocking. And they were totally awesome. He was totally right.
It's such a balls move too, to be like, our band's awesome. You're like, all right, bro.
yeah, but like he had that sort of fashionable, cool aspect to him, right? And like since then, I mean, I've met Scott a bunch of times since then, and we were never really like super close or anything. But like, he's much more down to earth now. But like, fuck, I mean, it definitely got my attention.
I'll be honest though, like, I mean, and I'm not talking shit about this guy at all. I was this 20 years ago, but I think now I actually do have more of an appreciation when people are just like, yeah, I'm the fucking shit. Like, I kind of just respect that, because that's like 0.5% of the entire world, if that will actually say that. And you're kind of like, all right, if they're a dick about it, like Kanye's obviously crazy, but like,
yeah,
it's almost kind of like, all right, yeah. Fuck it, why not? Like if you constantly just talk about yourself and want to just like, fuck yourself all the time, you're kind of like, okay.
They definitely delivered. Like, it was totally different and way more sophisticated than anything we could have put together.
I remember when I first heard Background, I think it was Background or 7 Inches. This was like 98, and someone said, did you know Lifetime had other albums besides Hello Bastards and Jersey Best Dancers?
Yeah, sure.
I was like, no. So I listened to it and I was like, this is so weird. It was just because I was so used to their later stuff that to go backwards like that I had a different set of ears. But for you to be there from the beginning, to not know what Hello Bastards or Jersey's Best Dancers is, like you have fresh ears to hear that stuff.
Well, it's true too. Like, not all, but like melodic hardcore in New Jersey was like Vision, in the Blink of an Eye era Vision. And then like, and Shades Apart kind of, but not hardcore. They weren't like a straight edge hardcore band or youth crew band. But like, I think that it was Vision, and then it was Lifetime for me. Like I was like, wow, these two, and like Leeway. I was like, this is like that metal melodic punk crossover hybrid, and it was amazing. And even from the guitar sound is what really got me. I was like, God damn it, I need a JCM 900, but I got an 800. I love the 800.
I thought the 800 was actually the 8. Someone Casey had an 800, and it was like, I thought that sounded fucking great. I think it was that one.
They're a killer amp. I mean, they're in a lot of ways they're better than 900s, and I love my JCM 800. I mean, I had a Mesa, and I got rid of the Mesa and just kept playing them. Kept playing the Marshall.
Yeah, Mesa was too robotic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like too dry.
Yeah.
But it was like, seeing those bands and like being around for that was super cool. And like, I would equate the same sensation. Like we one of Seti's first shows, it was like either our first or like third show. I can't remember what it was, but we played the Melody and opened for Sam I Am.
Oh my God.
And like Sam I Am had that song on the radio that just when I thought you would break, that song.
Yeah. Yep.
Dude, they sound checked with that. They went from being like fat idiots to being like Sam I Am right in front of my eyes. Like they were like drunk and like having, they idiot band people. And they were like 1, 2, 3, and bam, they turned into Sam I Am. It was amazing. And like I said to the band that day, I was like, dude, if we can't do that, we should quit.
The one thing I was gonna point out was when you were talking about the other bands before, like who'd you like Shades Apart. I was re-listening to the album that you guys put out on Pinball today. I thought your voice or like the sound had a very Shades Apart and Far Side kind of mix.
Ah, that's cool. I mean, I'm a baritone, so like I can't do I don't have a pretty voice. You know what I mean? Like I wish I had like a higher like tenor, prettier, more melodic voice, but it's gravelly, I guess. And when we recorded that, I had pneumonia.
Oh
so
shit!
I had like walking pneumonia during the vocals.
Okay, so let's kind of work up to that because you guys have another album on SoundCloud. What is that?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it's a whole album, but we have like a couple of songs that came out. So like after Pinball, we had no money and like we had no idea how to do something next. So, and we were trying to put together like an EP or something.
Oh, okay. So hold on one second because that one I was listening to it. I thought that one was done before your other
all right.
album.
So we had two. So we did how do I say this? So before Pinball, we recorded a demo at this studio in West New York called Rollin' Fatties, which was run by two guys I went to elementary school with.
Okay.
Keith Menino and Tom Camuso. Two ripping musicians, like amazing musicians. Keith got signed to a major label deal and like they became super close friends with Lenny Kravitz. I think Keith did like a lot of work for Lenny. So they opened the studio and they would sometimes record tracks for Lenny Kravitz. We got in there and we recorded a 5-song demo, I guess. I think it's a 5-song cassette. And Turon heard that from Pinball. And I remember him being really into it because he also liked Frisky's Revenge. Like Jay was a little kid coming to our shows when we were like in high school, I guess, right? He's younger than me. We played a show. He got the tape somehow. We played a show at the Bernardsville, some church in Bernardsville with a bunch of bands like Joystick and a bunch of other bands. Like I was newly back from college, right? And like I hadn't lived in New Jersey in like 5 or 6 years. And we had started Seti Alpha 6 and we're playing, we were just starting to play shows. And we put the little demo out and we played the show in Bernardsville. And then Jay asked us to be on Pinball. It was like really quick. And from there on in, we were on Pinball, and then we recorded the Pinball records, the thousands of feet above the earth with the Challenger explosion on the front. We recorded that. And then we, went out on tour with you guys. It was all like playing shows at the Palace, playing all over New Jersey, and then doing those things. And then when Pinball folded, we tried to record our own record, and we rough tracked like 10 songs and only were able to really finish 2. And we put out like a 2-song demo that went like fucking nowhere.
What were the songs? Do you remember the name?
The songs on the 2-song demo were Programmer, which is kind of like a very Weezery song. The other one was a song called Beast, which was more like Far Side.
Okay.
Truthfully.
Yeah, because they're not on the SoundCloud thing.
Probably not.
Yeah, because the album I was referencing that I thought you did prior to the full length was you have songs like 78 West, Burnin', Song 56, Frivolous, and Molasses.
Yeah, that's our demo. Yeah, that was our demo.
Who's the guy? Like, who's the guy with the green beanie and the like athletic tee?
All right. So this gets even more confusing. So
great.
When Rico passed, the band stopped. We were already sort of waning anyway, right? Like we were getting older, and like Kilo was doing stuff with work, and I was like getting married. Like it was just like it was time, right? Like when Rico passed, that really was it. We didn't play for like the longest time, and then a couple of years later, one of Kilo's friends, this guy Trevor, super great guy, he lived in Colorado and he moved back here. He was in a really funny band in Colorado called D'Artagnan, and he said he'd play bass for us. So we practiced. I don't know. I say we practiced like maybe 5 or 6 times, something like that. And then we got asked to play a Hamilton Street farewell show or something, and went horribly because like we were just like not prepared, and like it was like not that the chemistry wasn't there because Trevor was awesome, but like it just wasn't the same without Rico. Like it was like Rico is like a childhood friend. You know what I mean? Like Joe and Rico and I were together from the time we were like young teenagers. So like after that, we sort of just called it quits and didn't do anything.
So you had one show and then you were like, no.
Yeah, it just was not the same. And like we were all going in different directions, like everyone was going like totally different directions. And like we were older at this point. Like we were older than everybody else.
I was going to say that too, because your induction back into the scene as a band, well as your next band, you do it after college, which is such like you feel like such an old man when you're 22 for some reason, or 24, I guess. And then but because you're surrounding yourself with 18-year-olds.
Totally. And like it's so funny, like I don't know if you know Justin Carter.
Justin Carter.
So,
Wait, I know. Wait, Carter.
Could be.
He was the roadie for like Bigwig and stuff.
Oh, he was from that whole scene, right? But he was a guy I skateboarded with in Long Hill, and like he did some stuff for the Jersey Interchange, played guitar on a few tracks for some bands. But
Okay,
anyway, like,
no, I'm thinking of a guy who's totally. There's another guy named Carter who passed away years ago. It's not him.
All right, so Justin, like I met Justin at one of the Long Hill Legion Hall shows. He was like, I don't know, he was like 16 or something like that, but we skateboarded together like all the time. And like, I remember his mom being like, why are you hanging out with this guy who's 22? Like, it was like a little sketchy. And Justin's like, no, he's super cool. And like, I got to know his parents and stuff and we were fine. But Justin and I are still friends today. In fact, he introduced me to my wife. So like, we're tight still,
Oh, shit.
But like, it was difficult because like I was writing about my songs. If you listen to the first song on our demo, and I don't remember what year that is, but the first song on our demo is about me having to commute to work.
78 West.
Like commute. Like, yeah, well, it's called Frivolous, I think is the song.
Oh, yeah, it's number 4 on the list, but whatever.
It's totally about like, standing on the, in the fucking vestibule of some lousy train, having to go to New York and work some dumb office job. And like, that doesn't resonate with, someone who's 16.
Maybe think about that.
Like if you think about the bands we're playing with, like LWL, fucking awesome band. I remember when I first got home before Seti even started, I saw a show with them in Bigwig and was totally blown away by both bands. They were doing songs about Dunkin' Donuts. And I was like, fuck, I can't do that. This is not who I am. Like, it was just hard. Like, it just, there was just such a cultural gap because of the age difference. I felt like a lot of the stuff that I wrote really was for me and like didn't really connect with a lot of people because we were just not in the same spot.
Yeah, I felt that because when we toured with you guys, I think the first time we met you guys was when we were on the road.
Yeah,
I could swear.
Agree.
Yeah. And then, so when we heard you guys, I was like, wow, these guys have way more mature sounds, that it's more like a rock, because it wasn't like fast punk rock.
It was all mid-tempo because we were old as fuck. You know what I mean? Like my wrist didn't go that fast.
Yeah, there was this mature vibe, and I can imagine how like trying to fit. But even though like I said, Shades Apart was around then, and like the Far Side, actually I think Shades Apart's actually still around. Far Side, they might have been gone. I talked to Papa, I forget like when they broke up, but like
that's a great fucking band all the way around.
Yeah, fucking, and he's a cool dude. He's a super fucking awesome guy. Yeah, so it's got to be interesting to have the mature sound. So we're jumping around here, and actually, really quick, just I have to mention this because we talk about Justin Carter. This is how funny Facebook is. Like, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and
yeah.
I think I just, because of interviews, people have mentioned his names. Like, I've friend requested him. I don't remember having a conversation with this guy, but that's how funny Facebook is. Like, you're friends with people, and you're like, who is this?
He's an awesome guy all the way around, and like, he was like our biggest cheerleader. I would get like kind of down and be like, man, I don't know if any of this stuff is going to connect with anybody. And he's like, dude, it's great. Just keep doing what you're doing. Like, he was always super supportive. Like, that's priceless, that kind of stuff, that kind of support from a friend. Kudos to Justin.
Well, what was like your I'm going to say career, like your day-to-day, like, because certain bands, like the majority of us would either go to school during the week or work a job during the week. And then the weekends we'd all go and play shows. And the younger bands were like playing as much as possible. For you to be in your mid-20s, were you guys coming in that hard, or were you spacing it out more?
Well, it's funny. Like, so when Seti first started, I was the manager of this fucking houseware store in Long Hill Township called Sensible Home. I mean, what the fuck? It was the worst. So I worked there during the day, and then we would go practice. I think we practiced like 3 times a week, 3 hours at a clip at a rehearsal studio in Watchung called Earthquake Studios. And Shades Apart practice next door. So we used to hear Shades Apart like through the wall. That was awesome. So we would practice like at night, and everyone had to pay for practice. Like, we had nowhere we could play because we all lived out of the house at that point. Like, Kilo lived in New Brunswick. It was like no one was home. So so I would like work and play and work and play. And then when we started recording, we started recording with Jay Turon. I was working a second job as a temp at a pharmaceutical company. So I would work like a few days a week at the houseware store, and then I would work the rest of the week at a pharmaceutical job, and then I would go record our record. And that's why I got pneumonia. I got like totally run down. So I did that for a while more and put money together so we could go on tour. So all of us had to like save and steal and sell shit to just try and make the money to rent a van.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was stressful, man. It was so stressful. And like, it was kind of like, fuck, man, like, how are we actually going to do this? Like, if we want it to be like a real band and like tour, like, am I going to have to work 2 jobs forever to like just pay for the fucking van to go? And then I was like, when we got on tour, to me, like our tours with you guys were really fun because you were all freaks and like Rob Heiner's hilarious. And, you know, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that, you know, he would shoot people with that fucking water gun full of piss out of the car. Like that's amazing. Well, that big car wreck and all those people.
What?
I don't know. You don't remember that?
No.
We all ate.
Hold on, because we toured with you guys like once, and then Day at the Fair did years later. They did a tour.
This was the tour we were on with you guys. I distinctly remember being in 3 vans, and I think Rob was in Humble Beginnings van.
I do not remember.
He was playing in both bands. We ate at a Shoney's. We all got in the van, and we drove out of whatever fucking town we were in. And we had that freaky roommate, Brett. Do you remember that guy? Looked like Conan the Barbarian.
No.
With long hair. He was a freak. He bought all these fireworks and pocket knives and shit. He was a fruitcake. Anyway.
Okay.
No, he was great. He was like one of my closest friends from college. Anyway.
Okay.
There's a car accident on this like local highway, and there's like all these people. It's like a multi-car pileup, but no one got hurt. Everyone was standing out next to their cars. I think Rob was asleep in the van. And he sort of woke up, saw these people on the street next to the van, and he unloaded with them on it with that fucking piss-filled super soaker while they were eating ice cream. Do you remember that? I was like, what the fuck? Because I saw this stream of shit coming out of the window, and I was like, oh my God, no. Right? Because it was all those people like had just been in a car accident. And like there was one fat dude holding an ice cream cone. And I remember thinking, this is the greatest ever.
So I think Rob got that trick from Saturday Supercade because they did that at the beginning of a tour one time and during like daylight, and they were in front of us and they stopped and we're like, what are these guys? When our van's behind them, we're like, what are they saying to this? And this person like kind of looks in and then just get blasted in the face by a water gun. It wasn't piss though, and then they took off and we were like, holy shit. With Rob, I feel like it probably was because Rob's gross.
Yeah, I would confirm that with him, but I remember that clear as day, unless I dreamed it. But I completely, I mean, that was cemented in my mind. That, and I think somebody from Humble Beginnings, they always laughed at us because we wanted to skateboard even more than we wanted to play shows because everyone skated.
Yep.
And like our tour was kind of like a skate road trip interrupted by shows.
Yes, I remember that with you guys.
Like we would drive out of the way to go to like a concrete skate park and like then meet you guys at a show, which was kind of dumb.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think I have photos of you guys skateboarding because when we were in that Tampa skate park, you remember you guys were like skateboarding around, and I was very jealous.
Yeah, they had a vert ramp at one of the parks that we went to, and I remember thinking this is awesome. And they had a foam pit. We were doing like a bunch of like launching into the foam pit, which was fun.
I do have photos of that. What was your relationship with Jay? Like Jay is, I mean, do you still talk to Jay today?
I don't really. I mean, I haven't really seen. I mean, I saw him not too long ago. It was great to see him. Like he's the same. Like he's like a tall, handsome, charismatic guy. When I met him a long time ago when he was like a high school kid, like a young high school kid, when he was coming to see my first band play, and he gave me this. I remember, forget this. He gave me a hand knitted ski cap, like a winter hat with a huge pom pom. It was white and blue and green stripes with a huge green and blue pom pom on top that I wore all the fucking time.
Did he make it?
I don't know if he made it or where he got it, but he's like, I think you'd like this, and he gave it to me, and I loved it.
Okay,
right?
Interesting.
So then I went away to college, and like I didn't even really think about New Jersey at all. I got into a band in college, and we almost got picked up. Well, I don't know if it was almost, but we got letters back from Fat Wreck wanting more stuff because we were like on that pop punk thing before anyone was doing the pop punk thing, or when it was first starting, I guess, like No Effect's first record kind of stuff. I was in this weird band called the Mysterians. Terrible. I mean, fun name, but there was a band called Question Mark and the Mysterians, so we got confused with them a fucking lot. I was trying to use it it was an old Japanese horror movie. Anyway, we wore ski masks and had like a whole stage show and like different identities and all this other nonsense. And it was like a whole big comedy show. But at my school up in Saratoga, we would book a lot of shows at our sort of coffee house student union spot. It was like a Legion Hall size. But we had killer shows. We had Archers Aloaf. We had Sinkhole. We had Weston. We had there were so many, the Toasters, the Mephistopheles, Pie Tasters, like all these different bands. And we played with all of them. So I was playing in that band for the longest time. And then we broke up after college. And that's when I came home. And that's when I met Jay, when I was starting to do Seti Alpha Six again.
Okay.
So the order of bands was Exploding Donkey Fetus, then Frisky's Revenge, and then the Mysterians. Then a short-lived band called the Petersons, which was based on my buddy Joe Peterson in Saratoga, a great guy. Sort of like pop punky stuff, sort of like 15-ish kind of sounding. Green Day 15, like that band, like that era. And Crimp Shrine, I don't know if you remember that band. That's like sort of gutter punky kind of sound, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So we played that kind of music. And then I came home and we started Seti Alpha Six.
So what was that other band? Mysteri what? Mysterium?
The Mysterians. We have a 7-inch called Need a Drummer because our drummers kept quitting. We went through like 15 drummers, but that's available somewhere. I think that's online somewhere. And it was funny, stupid songs. What's funny? Basically, kind of like the stuff the sense of humor that you guys had with Lane Meyer and Humble Beginnings and that whole scene. Because I was, 18, 19, 20, like in college. So it's like I was doing that a few years before you guys were doing it because I was frankly younger and more out of control.
When we met up with you guys on the road, we were just like weird. Like I don't think we were doing anything crazy besides this whole like shooting someone with piss in the water gun thing.
You guys weren't crazy. You were funny. I just remember laughing a lot with you guys.
Yeah, like we had a really good time with you guys. I remember that because like internally we were a mess. And me and Chris like fucking hated each other on the road. We just constantly bicker. I'm sure like you probably possibly caught that, but
yeah, a little bit, but nothing crazy.
Like the one thing I liked about when we went on the road with you guys is that you guys were so even keel and just having a good time. And I remember thinking to myself, being like, why can't we just be as cool as like just chill as these fucking guys? Like you guys were just like, yeah, man, we're just gonna play some fucking music, or we're gonna go skateboarding, and let's do our own shit. And I was like, that's like the way to be. Instead of stressing the fuck out. And you guys like all got along from what I saw.
Yeah, we all did. I think everybody got along in the band. I mean, nobody took stuff I think I took shit real seriously because I wanted the band to do more than we were able to do. I also sort of knew like ultimately like as much as I externally wanted to be a musician professionally, I knew I wanted to have a family, and I knew that was going to eventually put as many coffins in my music life as it could. And not in a bad way, like not in a bad way.
It didn't sound like your aspirations were to be like this giant touring band. Like I think mentally at that time, you can answer this. Like, did you see where you'd start kind of, when like there's a game out there in like the whole entrepreneur world where someone's on stage and they're like, all right, who wants to make $1,000 this year? And people raise their hand. He's like, who thinks they can make 100,000? And they raise their hand. They're like, who think you can make 1 million? Like, who thinks you can make 1 billion? So everyone's hands start to go down as you get higher and higher and higher because like mentally you just don't see yourself getting there. Like, did you kind of do that with yourself? You guys were talking about having more tours or getting on like a bigger label. Did you start maybe mentally shutting down?
So interestingly enough, like we were pursuing trying to get a deal on like a smaller major label, like almost right after. I could have my timelines messed up, but almost right after we released the first Seti record, because I felt like we had some momentum. Like I was doing everything I could think of to try and get us onto a label once pinball was going, like not going to be anymore. Like I was like, what do we do next? We got to try and do something else. We're not going to be able to fund this ourselves. We hooked up with like an entertainment attorney in the city. We showcased for him among other people. Everyone we talked to gave us the same feedback. They're like, oh, we really like these songs. They're like really current, but we don't hear a hit song. I said, all right, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, could you take this song, turn it into a 3-minute and 30-second long song with 3 choruses and a guitar solo that sounds like the vocal melody, and then we'll be happy. I said, okay, I could try to do that. And the more I tried to do that, I mean, I did it. But the more I tried to do it, the worse everything sounded to me. I quickly sort of realized that like I didn't want to do that. And I didn't necessarily need the validation of anybody else. Like I kind of felt like I liked the music that we were playing, and I liked playing it with Joe and Kilo and Rico. And that's kind of all I really needed, I think. And like it was nice to hear like one of the guys from Shades Apart was like, "Hey, we had your record. It's really good." Like I was like, "All right, cool, check." I was like, "Oh, box checked. They liked our record."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like from there, I was cool. I was like, "All right, awesome. I'm good." You know what I mean? I can now go be a dad, or I can now go do something else. I've never really had to chase it because I just kind of was happy with what I had done, and like I don't know, I just never really wanted to continue at that level because it just started to get not fun. It became a job, and it became something that got worse the harder I tried.
That's also like it's kind of a. I think that's. I think there's two things happening when a record label tells a band that. It's like one, it's a test to see if they'll actually fucking do it. Because I think the 90% of the people would be like, "Fuck this," and they're like, "Okay, fine, we don't have to worry about this." But if you did, then they could be like, "All right, well," then actually no, it could be weird because they'd be like, "Okay, fine, now we can control you."
Well, yeah, there's that aspect of it, but then like also in the back of my head, I remember hearing the Midtown record when it came out, the Pinball Midtown record,
Yeah.
and like how catchy that was the first time I fucking heard it. I was like, God damn it, that's super good. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're like, fuck, man. Like, I want to write something that's going to connect with everybody, and like, who knows if you're ever going to do that? And like, you then have to like the art you're making because it's art you like.
There's only like so much. Like everyone's, I think songwriters in general, they just like. Do you still play guitar now?
I play every day.
Okay, so you know when if you try to force yourself to play something different, how smooth does that happen?
It's not that smooth. It's pretty rigid.
Yeah, so it's like you have this internal style that just comes out through your voice or your fingers when you're playing guitar. That's like
Yeah.
you can hear it and say, "Oh, I always just fall back into this style. I can't break from it."
Well, you always sound like you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of, I used to think this actually when we were in the band, and I would be like, oh, I really want to sound like Quicksand. I had to stop listening to Quicksand because I would never sound like Quicksand. I was like, fuck, this is so frustrating. You remember the movie The Bad News Bears?
Yep.
I'm not sure if it's The Bad News Bears 1 or 2, but in one of them, the coach is talking to this kid who's like a super awesome pitcher, but like he's always trying to throw like another professional pitcher. Like he's like, I'm going to throw a fastball like Nolan Ryan. And finally, the coach says to him, throw like you. Forget about throwing like somebody else. You're only ever going to throw like you. And like that's true. Like no matter how hard you want to not be you, you're condemned to be you.
It's it's funny that I feel like that's like good advice just to hear for myself because even now with like the shit that I do when I'll do like animation or something like that, I always go like I'll let myself finally fall back into my style, but every time I look at my style, I'm always like, this looks so simple and like basic, but to someone else, like I kind of like I see it and I'm like, oh, I want to do this other thing.
Dude, Paul Newman couldn't watch himself on the movies.
Really?
Like, he would never. He couldn't. He was like he would have like panic attacks because he hated the way he acted. He's fucking Paul Newman.
That's so crazy.
But like for me, like with guitar specifically, like since Seti, so like this is crazy. So after Seti, I was married and had kids, and I got divorced. Like the whole fucking saga. I got remarried. I got 3 kids. And like in the middle of all that, I did a band with Rob Heiner, Joe, and
Dave Flores.
We did Los Miguelinos as like an homage to Rico, right? Because his last name was Miguelino. I loved some of the music that we did with that band, but it was like super short lived. That band was like the next sort of evolution in who I was as a songwriter and guitarist, because my dad, around the same time as Los Miguelinos was breaking up, bought that club in northwestern New Jersey called the Stanhope House.
Your dad owns the Stanhope House?
Yeah. My dad bought it.
Fuck out of here.
Like 12 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been like up and down and sideways and out of business, but not out of business. I mean, like he has like rescued it from the brink like a gazillion times. So it's like the hardest business in the universe. I mean, talk about nonstop anxiety and work and great nights and terrible nights and like amazing shows and famous people and then nobodies and crickets and water damage and you name it. When he bought that place, I started playing up there with him. And I always, even through Seti, played with my dad in another band, and we did nothing but blues and jazz and soul music. So like I always had this weird flip side to my playing that was, all roots music based. So like we play like Ray Charles songs, we play Righteous Brothers songs, we play, Stevie Ray Vaughan songs and Muddy Waters songs and like all that kind of stuff. I've gravitated much more towards that now, but there's still an element of like the punk rock stuff that's in even my blues playing. It's just because I'm always going to be me. Like you never can escape it. And like I've noticed from playing recently that like even if I play clean, no distortion, like just clean channel, like just the way my fingers resonate with the strings, like the way the pressure that I put on and the string gauge I use and the type of frets and the type of pick and the pickups and the amp, and you're always going to sound like you're always in the mix somewhere.
To that point, when you're watching your guys play in the Jersey scene, you're not letting yourself, like, you're writing what you write at that point, and you're here in Midtown and being like, fuck, like, were you just like letting yourself just write the way you wrote and then just presenting to the Jersey scene being like, this is what I do?
Yeah, that's kind of what I had to do, because I couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? Like I remember hearing the second Midtown record, the first song, and Heath's lead on that song, and thinking, wow, fucking awesome. Like there's like some subtle like sort of tempo changes that he does and stuff. And like I was always blown away by his playing, especially like we tuned down to a full step. We were in D, like not drop D, but the whole guitar tuned down to D. And I remember he broke a string at some show in Florida, and he took my Les Paul. I gave him my Les Paul, and he played it. He transposed everything on the spot, a whole step up. And I was like, whoa. I was like no misses.
I feel like I remember hearing that story because that's when you're talking about Midtown's van breaking down and you guys meeting up with them at the show. How many times did you guys go on the road?
We were only on the road with any sort of packaged bunch of bands like once, and then everything else we did like on our own by ourselves.
So that was the same tour then, where I guess we must have broke apart in Florida, because at Gainesville, that's when we parted ways. I remember that because it was really late. All of us just played to each other at the show, and this girl shows up, and someone said that she was Dave Weston's girlfriend, and she was like dancing all fucking weird when the bands were playing. And at the end is when we took that photo against the wall with like all the band members, and then we split. So I think either that happened the night before and you guys went to another show and played with Midtown, that happened, or it happened after. But I remember you telling me, I remember hearing that story from you, and I was just like, yeah, that's because Heath is just a fucking animal.
Yeah, it was so apparent to me. It was apparent that he was going to be a musician. He was going to have some modicum of success doing this, because he was sort of unflapped by, oh, my guitar broke. Oh, this guitar is a whole step down. Bang, I'm moving it up. No problem. And like I think that's what it really takes, right? Like you have to be that kind of guy. And like I can do that with other forms of music, but I couldn't do that at that stage in my playing. Probably not.
Did you, like, when you guys broke up, did you guys break up because of Rico?
Yeah, I mean there was a bunch of things that went on that contributed to it, but like, I mean, having like one of your closest friends die that was pretty much it. I mean, like it was hard to like even think about playing any of those songs without him. I mean, we were like brothers, like me, him, and Joe. Like we became people together. It was tough, definitely tough. He was always like the sort of grounding member. Like no matter what you did, like I would get all stressed out about like booking a show and writing a bunch of enough songs and are we tight enough, and like I'd freak out about that stuff. And like Joe would like be like looking at girls and like total rock star, kind of like the goose is on the loose, like kind of lifestyle, which is great in its own right. But Rico was always the guy who was like, we are about like, we're having fun, we're gonna go skateboarding, we have to stay true, don't be a fucking phony, and don't like try and latch on to whatever's popular. Like he was completely unique and his own fully formed person, and was completely undeterred by anything you said to him. If you said, Rico, we all have to like now gravitate towards grunge music, he'd be like, that stuff sucks, I'm gonna listen to The Exploited, and I'm going skating, peace out.
Yeah, he was super chill. I remember just him on the road. I think that's like the only time I really got to meet him, which is cool because on the road, like you guys are basically a caravan for days on end.
Yeah,
he was always just super fucking chill and smiling, just like, yeah, whatever, man.
So chill. And he would like fall asleep, and like he would get in the van, fall asleep, van door would open, he'd wake up. He was like a big, like he was like Winnie the Pooh. Like he was like super zen. I don't know, just he as much as you thought he would never like he would never do anything different. Like he would always just be Rico, always. He kind of had it figured out before we did. He was like he was quiet, but not insecure. He was like, I don't know, he was amazing. He was just a great dude all the way around.
Yeah, I remember when I heard about him passing away, I was just like floored. I was like, holy shit.
It was fucked.
Dude. He was so young.
He was coming home from Aikido practice and like he died in his car. The thing was a heart attack. We don't really know.
God.
But he wasn't like, doing drugs or anything. Like he was a vegetarian.
Oh my God.
And like, yeah, it was so fucked. Like I remember getting that call and it coming completely out of left field, especially that young. It was crazy. We buried him with Seti Alpha Six stuff, stickers, and Frisky's Revenge stickers, and skateboard wheels, and like a Viking warrior.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember putting those things in his casket and thinking to myself, "Fuck yeah, Rico." If nothing else, too, like I always feel like he went out on top. Like he finally graduated from college. Like he had worked super hard to do that. He was in a good band. He was skating great. Like we were going to skate parks like all the time, and he was totally killing it. For a big dude, like he was killing it. And then he passed. So like he was like firing on all cylinders and then gone. So I mean, I don't know if you could ask for more at that age.
Yeah, I know, man. It's like, yeah, and I don't want to like lean into it more because I know how like sucky this is to talk about too. So
yeah,
it sucks. It fucking blows.
It totally sucks, but it was a gift to be around that guy all the way around. And like the coolest part, so my oldest son is 15. His name's Cole. He is killing it at life. He's high functioning autism, right? Like he's autistic, but I mean he looks like a freaking superstar. Like he's got like long cool hair and like he's super handsome and like way better looking and more in shape than his dad. He's amazing and like such a cool kid, and like he skates a little bit and like he's way into like Godzilla and like all this other like monsters and collecting action figures and shit. But when he was born, I remember I was going to pick him up in the nursery in Overlook Hospital. And this is before we knew anything about like autism or whatever. When I went to the nursery to pick him up, there's always a pediatrician that's there to check out a baby before they let it leave the nursery to go home. And it was Rico's sister. So she's a pediatrician and she wasn't supposed to be at the hospital that day. And she was not supposed to be doing those rounds, but someone called out sick. So she just happened to be there the day my son was born and happened to be the pediatrician to check him out and make sure he was okay before I took him home. So I walked in as she was checking him out, and she looked at me and I looked at her and we just fucking started bawling. And I was like, I felt like your fucking brother was here, like with my son. And like, now you're here. Like, what is going on?
Oh,
like,
he was already passed at that point.
He had already passed.
Oh,
and
my
like,
God.
she by chance was there. And like, I've always felt like he's sort of, Cole and Rico had some similar interests. Like he loved anime and Godzilla movies, and that's Cole. So maybe there's a little spark of my buddy, somewhere in my son.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Like
It's so crazy.
I love stories like that too, like the one with his sister being there, because sometimes you're just kind of like, that's just too much of a coincidence.
Well, if you also go back to like the idea of like everything being terrible and the ebb and flow between people and the universe being completely insane, like you would hope that there would be some bright spots like that, like that the universe would balance its scales somehow. You have, assholes storming the Capitol, and then you have my son being checked out by my deceased best buddy's sister. Like balance those fucking scales, universe.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though, because I think at the core of it, everything is just good, and then shitty things just kind of happen because people. I mean, granted, there are things that happen where you're like, that is just fucking awful.
I don't know. I believe, having lived through, a bunch of different kinds of things. I believe the universe is indifferent. That ultimately everything, the universe, I believe, is perfect. It's just whether or not you can deal with the perfectness.
That's what I mean. Like that's I was trying to get to. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, totally. No, but like it's like, but at the same time, like I've, and I'm, I'm not trying to take away, but like I'm trying to compare a mirror. Like and I was talking this with a buddy in a couple of podcast episodes ago. Like I've from the age of 6 until now, I've been to so many funerals from kids that a buddy of mine who was 6 years old on my soccer team who died, got hit by a car, and then like two best friends that we wrote a Lamar song about, like they died an hour after we saw them. It's like I've seen shit like I've seen awful shit, and even through that, I'm kind of like the core of me just being like, shitty things happen, but I think at the core of it there has to be this balance, which sucks. But I just kind of go for like the good part of it, where if I'm feeling shitty, I think it's like me going, I got to find the way to get back down to the good part, because I think that's for me is the natural state, and this other thing I'm going through is like growth, or I'm just like gonna have a shit fucking day, man.
I mean, listen, I would not be where I am with my wife and my three kids now, not having gone through, financial troubles, divorce, and all the other things that we went through. You know what I mean? And like, it's the same for everybody who goes through those things. You end up on the other side of it somewhere, hopefully good, but like you are where you are because that's the quest you're on. That's your adventure. I don't believe that there's necessarily a Santa God that you pray to that then says, geez, I really don't want to gain these, this 10 pounds, or help me lose these 10 pounds. Like, there is no Santa God, but there is some sort of balance, you hope, or something.
I totally believe that. We can get weird. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully it doesn't make, hopefully I don't get a fucking death threat from somebody who loves Santa God.
Well, it's like, what's his name? Pete Holmes, where he talks about like the Burger King. He needs to say,
Yeah.
it's like, that's what I think he looks like, the Burger King. So like, this is just a question I'm gonna throw out there because Jay will not come on this podcast, and I really want
Turan
to.
won't come on the podcast?
He won't come on this because he doesn't want to talk about that error. So what I want to present to you is, why do you think that he is so against talking about that time?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know, to tell you the truth. I thought he was like a larger than life, like, savant at what he was doing.
Same.
Like he had such magnetism, and I think he picked such great bands. I mean, I'm not trying about our band. Like, I was happy he picked us and he liked us, but like, I mean, pretty much everything he picked was pretty good. He had a real flair and eye for all of those things, and his enthusiasm was like, I mean, it was like unmatchable enthusiasm. I always say this to Kilo or even a Chris Badami. I was like, dude, he was like the fucking Sam Phillips of New Jersey. Like, Sam Phillips, Sun Records, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, he really was. And like, I don't know why he wouldn't want to come on the show. I don't know if it's too hurtful, or if it's, if he put so much into it and didn't get enough out of it, or if he feels slighted or whatever. But I hope it's none of those things, because he did nothing but add. I mean, he added it contributed to a great part of my life. I think the lives of a lot of other people.
That's the point where I'm so confused, because everyone has nothing but love for him. And it's sad to me that if he got burned that much, then it might be some people just only talk about the past, which I personally, obviously you can't do a podcast for 4 years of the past and not like talking about it. But like, I personally think there's a growth thing in there for me if I'm talking about shit that I didn't like back in the day, and I'm like, here's where I was at, here's where I've grown from then, and I left this behind. Some people just really don't want to just in general talk about the past, but with Jay, I'm so confused because everyone loves Jay. To this day, I've never heard anything bad about him, and he just don't talk about it. I'm just kind of like, I mean, it's more of a bum to being like, oh man, this would be so great to get your perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is. I can say some of the best times I had playing music were with Jay, or playing shows, definitely. And like, I don't know. It bums me out to think that he's bummed out about any aspect of what he accomplished.
I know,
because come what may, or like, no matter what the result was, he did some pretty remarkable shit for a guy from Berkeley Heights, for God's sakes.
I know, he just saw it. Like, yeah, he had a great eye, but it just,
he did, and he was charismatic. I think, if nothing else, the only thing he lacked was a partner to channel that enthusiasm. Like, that was the only thing Jay lacked at all.
Wait, like with the label?
I think with like, maybe with business in general, like back then, 'cause he was a kid, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, to accomplish that I mean, how old could he have been? How old were you guys? 20?
Yeah, we were 18 to like 21.
So when I knew him, he was probably in his late teens or early 20s. I mean, I couldn't have done that. I was fucking 8 years older, or however many years older. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, it was remarkable what he accomplished. And it definitely is. It's a bum out to think that he's bummed on it at all. I hope he's not.
Yeah. That's all I get from people, is that he just wants to just not talk about it. I'm like, okay, that sucks.
If nothing, and also you got to think maybe he's afraid of saying something, or maybe he's afraid that his feelings might not be how he's remembered. I mean, who knows? But either way, I mean, for anyone listening to this podcast, most of that scene happened because of what Jay had done in a lot of ways.
Oh, totally. I mean, I have the Pinball Family and Distant Relatives comp open and the Discogs, and it's like, I mean, just right there, it's like, it's Joystick, Taxi Cab, One Cool Guy, Nowhere Fast, Step Lively, LWL, Catch-22, Humble Beginnings, You Guys, Royalties. There's just, there's Jiker. There's so many bands on there that were like that. Like a lot of them, the majority of them were all like North Central Jersey bands. Like that whole scene was that whole thing, and it was so much fun fucking playing those shows.
Yeah, and he he also picked us out of thin air. I mean, like we didn't know anybody. We weren't like known in the scene. Like we weren't like the cool kids that everyone knew. Like we were like idiots from like who were way older, and he like took a chance.
Before I wrap this up, in the song Intercultural,
yes,
you have a line, I think it says this: she wants the biggest air. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think so. Yeah, she wants the biggest air, short, sexy hair.
Yes. What is that?
I had worked on the Warped Tour. like when I lived in Saratoga Springs, like after college, I ran a skate park for a bunch of years. Like while I was in school, we had this awesome skate park. We had the oldest public skate park in New York State. It was in pretty bad shape when my buddy Benj and I took it over, but like started to help out, and we sort of resurrected it and like sort of rebreathed like life back into the skate scene there in some ways. I mean, they had a generational skateboard scene there. But I think, like everybody else, like we were all getting older and we were in college or out of college at that point, and like everyone was starting to like become a little bit more grown up. But then we all decided to become less mature and go back to skateboarding full time, right? And we really worked hard on building the skate park back up, and like we got it to a point where I reached out to Vans and said, "Hey, we have this great skate park here. Would you consider putting on a contest?" And Vans said, "We would like to do the Northeastern qualifier for the Hard Rock Triple Crown of skateboarding," which is like where the Warped Tour would end up. Like the skateboarding aspect of the Warped Tour would end up in California with the Hard Rock Triple Crown of skateboarding, right? So we ran the Northeastern qualifier for that. So we had kids coming from like all over the place, from fucking Canada, from like Syracuse, Montreal, Buffalo, Vermont, Maine. Like they would all come to the skate park, and we ran these qualifying events. And they were awesome. And because of that, Vans sent us, me, Benj, my friend Jeremy Fish, who's like a big artist guy and was instrumental in the park, my friend Greer, Jeff Mahar, like all these guys. We went down to first Harriman, where they had the first Warped Tour, or it was either the first or second year of the Warped Tour. And we built the skateboard ramp with a bunch of like professional, like Steve Alba, like Dwayne Peters, like all these professional skateboard guys. And we like helped it out with the contest and like helped judge and like got to skate. And like I got to meet Rocket from the Crypt and NoFX and all of my skateboard idols and like in one day. It was unbelievable. I did that twice. I did it 1 year there and then again in New York. And then we did it a second year in Asbury and Randall's Island as well. And, got to skate and like meet all these people. I ate lunch with Milo from the Descendants.
Oh my God.
Dude, it was insane. This was like the most insane day ever. We got food truck tickets and they had like these, because we were staff, and I was standing behind Milo in the food line. And I was like, holy shit, that's fucking Milo Ackerman. Like I was freaking out, right? I was freaking out, like completely freaking out. And I had this happen twice. I was standing behind him and like he turned around and like he's like, hey, and we were just like talking, and like I tried as hard as I could to like not fan out and be like, oh my God, Milo's Goes to College changed my life. I have that fucking shirt. I'm wearing it right now. Like that. Like I tried to not freak out. And like I ended up saying, hey, so when's your band playing? Like not your band, the Descendants, who I love, but just your band. He's like, oh, we're going on in a little while. And he's like, I got time to eat this like hot dog or nachos or whatever the fuck he ate. And we sat down at a picnic table and ate lunch. He and I.
How did you connect the dots from you asking that question, him saying he used to eat, then to you sitting with him?
Well, I was standing behind him in the line, and we just like started talking about like skateboarding and music, and like I just tried not to fan out on his band or him. Like I didn't want to be like, oh, I love your band, Milo. I have it tattooed on my face. I tried not to do that because that's what I wanted to say. Like, you know what I mean? So we ended up sitting together. Like he's like, you want to eat? I'm like, yeah, cool. So he's like, my band's not going on for like another 15 minutes.
So he asked you. That's the point. He asked you if you wanted to, not like you going, can I sit with you?
Yes, kind of. Not quite that. That would have been too cool, but like it was cool enough, right? So
Wow.
he was super nice and like a grown up. He was way older than me, right? We talked a little bit about, he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, we help build the skateboard ramps. We're judging the skateboard contest. He's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. Like Andy McDonald was one of the guys I worked with.
Oh my God.
So anyway, we talked, and then it was very brief. It was like maybe a minute or two that like I actually sat there with him for like a split second. He then said, you can watch our band from behind the drum kit. And I'm not going on stage. He said, no. You just stand over here, like right behind Bill. So I stood behind fucking Bill Stevenson and watched them play their set. I was like, well, that's it. I can go jump off a bridge now. That's it.
Was that another box checked?
Yeah. Check box immediately. The other one, like that same thing. I finally realized, I was like, oh, this not fanning out actually works. At Randall's Island, we got there early to help build the vert ramp, and we built the vert. I believe we built the vert ramp. We did it a couple of different times, and I got to skate the vert ramp before the contest started because like I was not contest worthy at all. So I'm skating, and like I grew up watching like the Bones Brigade and like Tony Hawk and all that shit. Steve Caballero shows up at the vert ramp, and I was like, holy fuck, that's Steve Caballero. Now I don't know if you know who he is. I mean, I'm assuming you probably do.
Yeah.
All right. So I had his board, like I had his shirt, like I had his cab sneakers on. He skated, like we're skating, and like I do a run, like he would do a run, and like he didn't watch me skate, like he was just doing his thing. But we ended up on the same side of the deck together while the Mighty Mighty Bosstones were playing. So he's standing in the corner of the vert ramp, and I was sort of on the rail next to him, and like he looked over, and he said, "Hey, what's up?" I said, "Not much." And I said, "What do you think of the ramp?" He's like, "Oh, it's great." He's like, "We skate this thing all the time." He was really nice, super nice. So I was like, "Fuck, I can't tell this guy that I had a poster of him on my wall growing up, and like that, like I had the same suspenders and I used to wear them the same way. Like I can't tell him those things." So like I like sort of tried to hold all that shit back, and I ended up talking to him about his band. He was in a band called The Faction, another band called Odd Man Out, and like they were skate rock bands. And like he loves playing guitar, he plays bass. So we talked about fucking music. I never once talked to him about skateboarding. I mean, except for like, how'd you like the ramp? But like I talked to him about like guitars and amps and shit, and it was awesome. And we watched the Mighty Mighty Bosstones together. It was killer.
Dude, that's awesome.
And I was like, final box checked.
I was gonna make a joke when you were like, I don't really need to talk to him about it. I don't fan out, and I just like I would interrupt and be like, so I told him I was like, hey man, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like,
like,
that would have been amazing. But like he was super nice, and like it just sort of made you realize that all of these guys that you look up to are just regular dudes who have a superpower.
Well, that's the whole part of the scene was just everyone just talking about how they started playing in bands and things like that because the bands on stage it didn't seem like this huge gap between where you were and where they were. And then if you had that mentality, it kind of bled into the skateboard world, which you said in the very beginning was just a fucking bridge right to the whole punk rock scene.
Yeah, totally. But I think also when I was growing up, like the local shows were just for us with garage bands, and like not until I saw Lifetime did I think that anybody had anything more than a garage band. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, well, maybe like Sticks and Stones or like the Bouncing Souls or like One Nature was fucking awesome. Like you would watch them and they were great.
I got a little spoiled because I started going to shows in like 97, 98. So when I'm going to local shows, yeah, there would be the local bands had a big presence, but that was easy to say I could play shows because I was already playing when I did that. But when I'd go to like fucking not Starland, I never went to Starland back then, but like it's Stone Pony, Stone Pony, Birch Hill, thank you, like things like that, and you'd see a band, you kind of, if you wanted to play in a band, for some reason I looked at those bands and I was like, I could do this like them.
See, I felt like the opposite. Like I remember it would be like we'd have like our shows and then we would go to City Gardens and see Bad Religion, and like you'd be like, there's what a real band looks like. It's Bad Religion. Look at what they can do. And then we would go home and practice. Or like, you would go to City Gardens and like the Ramones would come out and blow your scalp off.
Yeah, I think maybe it was a different thing of just me being like, I want that. And for some reason, I think I can get there because these guys aren't like Motley Crue where that's just too crazy.
I think that that very well could be true, and I think that there was just for me, it felt like there was a bigger divide between normal people and those people at that time. Like the Ramones might have been the best band. I mean, it's a toss up for me. It's either the Ramones or Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan at Carnegie Hall. It was life changing, totally life changing as a kid. And then the first time I saw the Ramones at City Gardens, it was like getting hit by a Mack truck. It was unbelievable. They just came out and it was like, oh, there's punk rock penicillin, the first and most strong strain of this thing. Everything since the Ramones has been like amoxicillin or Ceftin. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? It's like a totally strain of that. It was like seeing fucking the penicillin drug. They didn't say shit, didn't even talk to the crowd. It was just a 4 count. They came out in the dark, all leather jackets, like the whole thing. And it was like, I was like, well, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Not because I didn't believe in myself, but they're the fucking Ramones. Like that, like have a little bit of respect and reverence for that.
I think it depends on what you want. It kind of goes back to our like what we were talking about before, the universe stuff. I think it's like whatever you want to perceive shit as, it's like what you're gonna get. So I think
that's a good point.
You know, my perception was I was growing up, I had built into my brain that I wanted to play in a band and tour. Like that was all I wanted to do. You know, then I did and didn't go as far as I wanted to, but I also got in my own way and like didn't have a really good communication with my bandmates and things like that. And then I just stopped. Like if I really wanted to do it, I could keep doing it and just being like, well, I play music all the time. I could play in front of like 4 people, or if I was really good, I could play in front of millions, you know, tens of thousands or whatever. But that's just kind of, you know, the people are going to tell you what they want to say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think for me, it was I really wanted to be a professional skateboarder, but was too fat and fearful to do that. You know what I mean? Like that ultimately, like that's really what I wanted. And I was actually better at playing music than I was at skateboarding. But like I wanted the skateboarding.
Interesting.
Like that's really what I wanted. Like music was an offshoot of like this music, like punk rock music was an offshoot of skateboarding for me. So like, and I think for Joe too, like Joe and I like grew up, like we would skate all day, all night, and then go play music. It was skating first, then music. And then for a while, music took a front seat and skating took like a back seat, but it never fully left. Music is something that like I feel like I got good at and like was happy with myself and happy with where I ended up. And with skateboarding, I was always like, man, I would really like just to be able to do the right backside air. Still, like I'm going to be 50 years old and like I still go to a skate park. I'm like, I just want to get one. Like I just want one that I do right.
Well, when you get that, you got to text me and tell me you got it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Not with that attitude.
No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. Like it's kind of like I skated on Easter Sunday with a bunch of other older jerks down in Virginia.
I love it.
Just like we were down there at Busch Gardens with my kids, or Colonial Williamsburg in our camper. We found a skate park and I skated this bowl. My kids were at the playground with my wife and like I was skating, and it was super fun and like just great to roll around. But like I pulled a muscle in my heel. Like who has a muscle in their heel? Like what the fuck? like the first 2 minutes I was there, it was like, ow, my heel. And like the other old guy who was there was like, oh, you pulled the muscle in your heel? I'm like, yeah.
You're like, who does that?
Yeah. I'm like, dude, what?
Yeah, but you know, it's funny though, from like my perspective, the fact that you can, I can't even roll on the skateboard. And the fact that you could still do like a bowl without like, you know, pulling your heel muscle, that to me is like, fuck, I would love to do that. So, I mean, I could buy a skateboard and start learning and try, but I'm also like, I don't really want to break my ankles.
I think really what you have to call what I do now is really just rolling. There's not even really any skateboarding. It's just like rolling around, trying not to die.
Still, like that to me is like, that's way more advanced than me. So, you know, it's just different perception, my friend.
My best friend from college, this guy, Benj Gleeksman, he actually did all the artwork for the Seti record and did a bunch of layouts for Jay and for Portrait and stuff. He grew up in New Jersey, like hardcore kid and like punk rock kid. And we met in college, believe it or not. But he still skates. Like he sends me photos or videos of him and his daughter skating. And I'm like, fuck, he's still super good. And I'm like not so good. I'm like fat and fearful. I mean, I'm not that fat. I mean, I'm in fitness classes. Put it that way.
There you go. She's doing the CrossFit and getting
yeah. Oh yeah. It's the worst. It's the fucking worst. I was trying not to puke.
Wait, are you actually doing CrossFit?
We're doing something. It's like personal training. It's like small class personal training. It's basically like my wife has to put me in a car and drive me somewhere, so I actually try to exercise.
Nice.
She's the motivator. She's like the only reason like I'm not like, you know, working a stand at a comic book convention or something. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So real quick, who was the person's name again? That you just said that did the artwork for you guys?
Oh, Benj Gleeksman.
Okay, because I feel like his name has come up before in this.
Yeah, he's the best. He's such a great guy and like super duper skateboarder, huge music fan. He was the drummer in the Petersons with me. Like he plays in he plays, I think it's the name of the band. I want to say his band is called PowerPoint and they're a mock hardcore band. I think that's him. I think that's the band. It's awesome and they have a PowerPoint presentation behind them. It's fucking awesome.
So Heiner, I asked him about the piss thing. He said there was no pee in the Super Soaker. It was just water.
All right, so I was wrong.
But he said, tell Matt I love him and ask him about the shark song we never got to record.
Yeah, I have a tremendous fear of sharks. Hence the reason I was a skateboarder and not a surfer.
Ah.
If you if you see us at the beach, it looks like we're swimming in chest deep water, but everyone is just kneeling in like thigh deep water because like I won't let anyone go further out.
Oh, really?
Like I'm terrified of like, you know, me having to punch a shark or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote this song about the movie Jaws, and we had like it was like a full Jaws, almost like a Jaws set with Los Miguelinos, which was ridiculous, but fun.
I think I remember Rob telling me about that.
It was fun.
All right, cool, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap this shit up. I'm sad that Joe was stuck in traffic this whole time.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, I sent a text. I was like, "Yo, dude," and he's like, "No, go on without me. I'm in traffic." And I was like,
it sucks.
I was like, "When you get home, just fucking jump on it." And then he just stopped texting. I was like, "Come on, man."
Kudos to the Goose too, because I got to tell you, he and I mean, just as a parting note, right? Joe and I, like, we grew up as two idiot kids. We lived through the woods from each other, like on fucking Dawson's Creek. All we did was skate and play punk rock music, and like took it from like a shitty guitar and like a workbench and sticks to like actually playing in a band. And like, I mean, Joe, if he was on the show, he may not ever say this, but or on the podcast, not a show. I'm fucking like 500 years old.
Yeah, same. I can say that's true.
Joe's a remarkable drummer. He's a lyrical melodic drummer, which is hard to believe. He learned how to play drums. His parents didn't buy him a drum set. He learned how to play drums by setting up pillows in his room on his bed in the format of a drum kit. And like he would play like Motley Crue songs and like Quiet Riot songs, whatever the fuck he listened to back when everyone listened to glam rock. And like he learned how to play drums by playing pillows. And then he perfected it by playing a workbench. Like he was a ripping drummer before he ever got his first drum kit.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and then your dad bought him for him, you said in the beginning?
My dad bought him. Like it was, I mean, it's flattery to call it a drum kit. It was like a real piece of shit. Like you couldn't really tune the heads. Like it was a mess. It was like $100, right?
So
and
vaguely.
like Joe played the fuck out of that thing. And then like he got his own kit, and then he went through like the full John Bonham phase without. He didn't have a gong or anything, but he had like 16 toms and like 4 bass drums. Like, you know, he had like a huge he had like a Neil Peart kit. Like he didn't have wind chimes, but he had roto toms.
Did he have that when we were on? Did he have that big of a set when we were on the road, or did that come later?
No, when we were playing, I think he had 2 mounted toms and 2 floor toms.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was like pretty basic shit.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy, but like I mean, we all did that stuff. Like I had like a like a Marshall half stack and the extra cabinet and stuff like when I was in high school. You know, like everyone does that.
Yeah.
But Joe had he had 4 mounted toms, 2 floor toms, like 17 cymbals and 2 rototoms at one point.
God.
It was awesome. And it was amazing. And he played the fuck out of all of it. Like just went to town on it.
That's so aggressive.
Yeah, like he just was like he pounded that shit out. I will defy anybody, at least out of all the drummers I've ever played with. If Joe's going right, like for me, like there's nobody that gets your blood up more than him. Like it was awesome to play some of the Seti songs with him, like sort of driving us. You know what I mean? It would drive you to do more. It sucks that he wasn't on, but I would say that to everybody who is possibly going to listen to this, the 4 people that may be interested in Seti Alpha Six. Joe's a ripping drummer. So
you'd be surprised, dude. The Jersey episodes get so many listens, so there's a lot of people that are gonna check this out. Yeah, they're gonna love to hear this, and I did this because I wanted to hear the stories and want to talk to your ass again.
Oh, I was super flattered that you wanted to do this, and you know the show is great, and like it was fun as fuck playing with you guys and being part of everything. Even though I think sometimes I felt maybe deep down a little bit like an outsider because I sort of dropped in to the scene after you guys had already kind of established everything. But like, I mean, nobody could have been, sort of more welcoming than everybody that came to see us play, for fuck's sake. Shit.
I have a crate in my room that has every tour, like photos of all the tours. So I'll have to like send you photos of
Oh, please
our
do.
tour.
I'll dig through mine too, because we have a bunch of rolls of tour photos.
Oh yeah, do it, dude. Send them to me. Like you just even take a photo with your phone, just like without the glare if you can, and send them. Yeah.
Joe's got a bunch. I think he has most of them. Joe somehow ends up with all of our band shit. I don't know how that happens, but
I feel like Joe would be the guy that would end up with all the band shit.
he's like, I got the master. I'm like, great.
Oh,
good luck
Joe.
playing it. Finding an ADAT player. So.
Oh man. So fucking all right. So two questions before we wrap it up. One, what would you like to plug? It could be about you. It could be about a friend. It could be about both.
Shit. I would say support the Stanhope House. My dad, as a 77, 78-year-old guy, has been trying to keep music alive in North Jersey for the last 10 years now. So if you can support the place and like go see some shows, if there's things you want to see, definitely go. It's a cool place. It's historic.
It's awesome. I love that place. I played there twice.
Oh, cool.
I can't say I played there. Like I jumped on. Actually, no. I played there before I moved. Yeah, but I before ever like in 2015, I like left New Jersey and traveled because I was going through a divorce and shit. But prior to that, I played a solo like acoustic thing there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and Barker, he always would do his Day at the Fair Thanksgiving shows there. So one year, it was like right before I got divorced and like my dad had died. So I was like in this really fucking weird place. And so he's playing a set and I got up and played guitar. So there's video online of like us playing their last song at the Stanhope House and the crowd's going nuts.
I remember my parents, my dad booked Folly's reunion show.
Oh wow.
There. And
Jesus.
like, I was like, do you know what they're about, like what their deal is at all? Like, do you know what kind of music they are? He's like, no. He's like, oh, the kid was super enthusiastic and I really liked him and they're going to do a show. Dude, that fucking place exploded. It was awesome. And they were like, I never knew like that it was going to be this rough and we had extra bouncers and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, Dad, this is what this music is like. And like the guys from Folly were super cool and super nice. But like when they were playing, I was like, well, there goes part of our ceiling. Like,
oh fuck yeah. Yeah, John, I talked to him. He's little. I know we're extending this. I don't give a shit. He's the little brother of like Pete and Pat Tamillo, who were in Right Turn Eddie.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, he's a crazy drummer. He actually played drums for Right Turn Eddie when Steve Weird left the band, and then later on he did Folly, and it's this screamo fucking voice came out of like nowhere.
Yeah, they were great, and like for their reunion show, they were great. We had them. We had that band Trophy Scars. You know who they are?
I've heard of them.
They did their John, the guy who does sound with Chris at Portrait. He was our sound guy for the longest time, and he would do their shows there. We had all kinds of weird people come through there, like from punk rock bands. Like we had Adrenaline OD, we had Agent Orange, but then we had we had James Cotton played with Muddy Waters, play there. Johnny Winter played there. I played with him. I had to play guitar to back up Joan Osborne, which was weird. That's what he books. Like he books like a really eclectic mix of stuff, and he's been doing it a long time. He's got like a bunch of guys that do the booking, but like he's been keeping that place afloat by hook or by crook, for 10 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, at the end of this interview, I'm gonna tell you about a buddy lives right by there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. All right, man. So last question, and then stay on after this. And
sure.
I'll hang up. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Scene ethics. I don't know if I have any scene ethics as much as I have like skateboard ethics.
That works.
I think that I don't know. I love the idea of doing something for no other reason than you want to do it. Like you don't care about being seen doing it. Like you watch like these skate videos of like kids who are they're filming themselves, obviously, right? But like it's just like them and maybe the guy who's filming them at a spot for 2 years trying to land a trick down a bunch of stairs and they die the whole time, right? And they finally make it. And like, I don't know, there's something about like continuing to do something because you love it, but not because you want gratification for it. Like if the gratification comes, great, but like be true to you and to the thing you're doing, and do it only because you want to do it, not for any other reason. So like I'll play music till the day I die, but I probably won't ever do it for any other reason than because I like it.